morning laziness. This is Nilima Kayes, and today we are bringing to you an interview session with Ms. Michelle Thielen. Morning Laziness is an online magazine dedicated to women. It showcases various articles, personal life stories, and interview sessions on different matters concerning women. And today, our interviewee, Ms. Michelle, happens to be an author, a yoga therapist, as well as the founder of Yoga Faith. So let us welcome our interviewee. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
So good. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So to begin with, what does an ideal workday look like for you?
An ideal workday. Well, when you love what you do, it doesn't actually feel like work, but I like to wake up around the 8 o'clock mark and slowly wake up. I'm not a big morning person, but just to ease on into work, if I have something or a deadline or something that's really pressuring or stressful, this is not the way I like to start my morning. So I have prayer and devotions and of course a cup of caffeine, and then I can ease on into the yoga world, and that's how I love to wake up. And then of course, like I said, doing what I love to do, and then hopefully shutting it down around the 3 or 4 o'clock mark, and then enjoying family time and really trying to separate the business, because my husband and I, we work together. So it can be never ending. So just to make sure I'm creating those boundaries with work and life. But yeah, that's really the ideal day for me.
That sounds great. Now, what made you smile today?
I'm sorry, what?
What made you smile today?
Oh, smile. Yes. Honestly, when I opened the shades, we have this beautiful view of a valley and the sun was out, and it just made me really happy. I just automatically smiled.
Mm-hmm. Now, how are you adapting to the pandemic-oriented lifestyle?
It's actually been really nice for me. Unfortunately, people are sick and, have it, but for me, it's been less travel, less international travel. That can kind of become exhausting when you travel a lot. So being home, kind of getting my house in order, spending time with the family, and just doing regular chores like laundry and cleaning has really been a blessing to really slow down and smell the roses and be really present and mindful in life and what we do.
That's great. Now, since you happen to be a yoga therapist, how long have you been practicing yoga?
I've been practicing yoga before I actually knew it was yoga. In dance, a lot of the stretches and movements are yoga based. And then when I was professionally dancing in the early 90s, for the WNBA and the NBA, we had to take yoga twice a week just for injury prevention. So that's really when my consistent practice really started, is the early 90s.
That's great. Now, what are some of the basic postures you started off with while learning yoga for the first time?
Just like lunges and some of the seated forms that, again, I didn't really know were actually yoga. There's also been times in my life when I went through depression where I was like on my face and on my knees, and I didn't actually refer to them as yoga forms, but obviously, I've come to know that I've been doing yoga my whole life. So yeah, a lot of the standard seated or standing, or like I said, the lunges, that's really where the base and the foundation of my practice had begun.
That's great. Now, what aspect do you like most about being an author?
Being an author allows you to share your story just in a greater capacity to reach more people. My first book, Stretching Your Faith, incorporates your faith. It can be any faith or lack of, into the yoga practice. And then Exit Wilderness is really my story of how I got out of depression and hopelessness, and really didn't realize it was coming at the end of a pandemic where people are really depressed and grieving. And so it allows, even if it's one life that I can save through my attempt at suicide, through depression, it's just so worth it. But being an author, you can really share your story to just a greater and higher capacity and hopefully help people.
Right. Now let's move on to some questions about your professional life. So, as you had mentioned, you are an author. Now you could start off with sharing a mini synopsis of the book, Exit Wilderness.
hmm Exit Wilderness, again, is just my story out of depression. And my depression really was self-inflicted. It came from having an affair, going through a divorce, losing my job, and just went down this spiral really fast and didn't really see a way out other than taking my own life. But when I went to actually do that act, there was an audible voice, and it really saved me and sobered me up. And it was a long journey out. So I hope to save people time and heartache with the steps that I took, so that they can find their own exit to their own wilderness.
That's a great contribution.
Thank you.
Uh, Now, what is exactly the somatic movement all about?
Somatic movement is what we have always done. We might not just call it somatic, but soma, the root of that word, means in the body. And so when we have these tensions or anxieties or traumas within our body and they get trapped, somatic movement or yoga or dance, or just shaking things off, and they can literally help us shake some things out. So embodied movement in general can release just trapped trauma or trapped tension, deep tension in our body. So somatic movement is really just the body moving. It's a very broad description, but it's a really helpful way. And some people might not feel comfortable doing it in front of people. So, if it's music that helps you move, whatever that is, maybe getting outside, but just moving things through the body, the mind, and the spirit as well. Super helpful, really important.
Right. Now, anxiety and depression, if you see, were on the rise during the pandemic and lockdowns. So, as a yoga therapist, what are some tips you would like to share to overcome these toxic emotions?
Yeah, it's really unique for each person. A lot of people who suffer for depression, and this was where I was at, you don't want to close your eyes very long. You don't want to sit still or this internal meditation. You don't want to do that for very long, if at all. You want to slowly be moving, or maybe it's a rapid dance type movement or sun salutations, but you do want to move and not really introspect and look within until some of that is healed and kind of moved out of the mind and body. Breath can be triggering. Looking inward can be triggering. So when we're grieving, when we're depressed, things can feel really heavy and hopeless. And we want to do something that's light and life-giving to provide that hope. So it can kind of be unique. Somebody might be so depressed or so grieving that the only thing they can do is be flat on their face or flat on their back. And that's okay. We just meet each person where they're at, which is what's lovely about yoga therapy, really having that assessment and that history. So we can really, where the rubber meets the road with each and every individual. So whatever uniquely works for them is what we really want to strive for.
Now, which profession would you prefer to keep close to your heart? Is it being an author or being a yoga therapist?
Oh boy, that's a great question. Wow, probably an author. Probably an author.
Right. Now, what is the book Stretching Your Faith all about?
Stretching your faith is whatever religion, background, culture, faith. It is a book that stems from my foundation of Christianity and how we can weave our faith into our practice and really connect, just not the mind and body, but the spirit and soul into everything we do throughout each and every day. So stretching your faith is really a biblical journey of what the postures of prayer mean throughout the Bible. We see chanting, we see meditation throughout the Bible. So as a Christian, from my point of view, it's really reconcile these biblical principles and redeeming them for the God who I call God of the universe. So it really can be interpreted with any religion and culture, but it just really shows people how that they can take their spirituality and make it every part of their day instead of separating it from mass or church or temple, that we can integrate it within everything in our lives. And so stretching your faith is a journey through postures of prayer and how we can connect mind, body, spirit, and soul, our humanity to divinity, really.
Interesting. Now, you have made a background in providing aid to the rescue efforts of human trafficked victims, or I would perhaps call them survivors, because when you provide aid or help to somebody, they must have survived that trauma, and in the end, you're trying to help them, come back to normal life. So, what are some initiatives that we as individuals could take to help those individuals to come back to lead a normal life after that trauma?
Yeah, it's so great. I appreciate the question. It's really important and vital because human trafficking is not just in third world countries, which is actually where Yoga Faith travels to help these young victims. We are at the youngest spectrum of 4 to 13 years old. So it used to be around 5 to 7, but it's, I've worked with 4-year-olds, and they're boys, they're girls, they're very, very young. And sometimes they're so young that the left and right hemisphere of the brain actually never connected. So what we do in adults of trying to reconnect the brain and the neurons isn't quite possible with the children, just because they've never been connected. So we really strive to do that, to have the left and right hemispheres talk again, to have the nervous system calm down, and to engage that parasympathetic system of calming and resetting the bodily systems. But again, going back to that introspective, it's really difficult and nearly impossible for somebody who hasn't had all of their connections because they're such a young age. So simply getting them to breathe without always saying breathe or just relax, because these are the things that they have been being told. So those are really great triggers, and we want to avoid just breathe or just relax. So we do want to connect them to breath though. So oftentimes we bring in something that they trust, maybe a stuffed animal or a real animal, something that they know is not going to hurt them. And we do therapy with that animal. Sometimes we'll put a stuffed animal on the stomach and, allow them to take this big, deep breath to try to get the giraffe as close to heaven as he can, or whatever it might be. And so we do want to stimulate that parasympathetic and increase that rest and digest in their system. So we don't refer to those words, but we want them to feel content. We want them to be safe. We want them to experience what safe feels like in their body. And eventually, if it's me or you or someone else listening to this, gain that trust, we can then kind of journey side by side, or even doing postures where we're like back to back, where they can trust that. And it's actually a beautiful journey, but sometimes it can be quite lengthy, and sometimes a lifetime with some of these little ones.
Right. Now, lastly, what do you think this world needs the most?
I would say, of course, love, but, in this pandemic era, hopefully it's post-pandemic really soon, we need touch. Isolation leads to depression and grief. And many of us have lost many people in the last couple of years, and we have a new normal, and we feel alone. And we feel covered, right? We're covered, we're alone. There's not a lot of communication or affection. And so implementing positive touch back in, and just kindness and a loving touch. But more than that, just, that positive touch is going to bring us out of that isolation. So cancel, not culture, but cancel isolation.
Right. So, on that beautiful note, we come to the end of this interview session. Thank you so much for joining us today. We truly appreciate your time and patience. And thank you, audience. Hope you had a great time with us today.
Thank you so much. Blessings. Namaste.